Greetings, YouTube. I want you to imagine that someone broke in to a polling station and they were able to abscond with 20% of the cast ballots before they were ever read. But their action was discovered. But they were able to destroy the votes before they could be recovered. That would be a major crime. That would be spoken about on every form of media known to man. The blog sphere would explode. Fox News would be on that like ugly on an ape. But if you pass a law that disenfranchises 10 to 20% of the electorate, preventing them from voting, well, conservative voters are all about that. Fox News loves that idea. The Republican Party embraces that like a warm blanket out of the dryer. So long as, of course, the people that are being disenfranchised belong to demographics that don't traditionally vote for the Republican Party, which are the people most affected by voter ID laws. What a coincidence. And yet suppressing people's votes is not seen as a criminal act. That's just political business as usual. So they're going to be allowed to suppress votes in Wisconsin. And I'm going to throw some data at you. There are approximately 300,000 voters in Wisconsin without the required ID. And some of the plaintiffs in the case that started this whole process. One is Ruth L. Frank, who's an 86-year-old resident of Brokaw, Wisconsin. The only record of her birth was an incorrect spelling of her maiden name. And is therefore an unacceptable form of identification. Ms. Frank has voted in every election since 1948. Not anymore, she doesn't! Another plaintiff in the case is Eddie Holloway. Mr. Holloway is no longer able to vote in Wisconsin because his birth certificate lists Jr. as his middle name instead of Eddie Lee Holloway Jr. So I guess Mr. Holloway, well, screw you! You don't get to vote either! Yeah, that's alright. That's not a criminal act. That's not voter disenfranchisement. Nope, that's just fine. I'll continue. The panel noted that Wisconsin had introduced new procedures to make it easier to obtain photo identification cards, reducing certain raised months ago by a federal court judge who had blocked Wisconsin's law, saying that it disproportionately affected blacks and Latinos. A lot of these things require birth certificates. We'll get to that. Several laws have been upheld in India and in 2008. The voter ID laws in North Carolina and Arkansas are also set to go to trial before the end of September. They've already been put in place in my state of New Hampshire, and it makes me want to vomit on the desk of the person in front of me when I have to show my ID to vote. It is un-American. And a recent study by a Harvard professor surveyed more than 1 billion votes cast in general. So now we have updated data. So they've surveyed 1 billion votes. And these are in general, primary, special, and municipal elections across the U.S. from between 2000 and 2014, or 2014. And found only 31 credible instances of voter impersonation. And many of those 31 instances were never confirmed and prosecuted. So, out of 1 billion cast votes over a 14-year time period, we have 31 credible instances of voter impersonation. That is not convictions. That is not charges. That is just credible instances, which is about as vague legally as you can get. Now, there's someone in this thread which came up with some really nice breakdown they did. This information is from 2012. And the person in question says, voting is a right. It shouldn't cost you $73. Said, why I'm opposed to new voter ID laws in Wisconsin? There's one reason. It shouldn't have to cost you money to exercise your constitutional rights. In the case of a poor person, it could be a significant amount of money just to get a state ID. Let's walk through this. Here are my assumptions. A person working for minimum wage who lives in a northern side of Milwaukee and has born in Milwaukee County. So we're talking about a fairly large area with a fairly large population. This fee for a state ID card, not a driver's license, is $28. To get that, you have to have a birth certificate. To get that, you have to go to the Register of Deeds office in the courthouse or mail your request. The fee is $20. Many people in poor neighborhoods don't have checking accounts, so you have to get a money order. You don't know how much they cost to one of the checking cashing places, so prevalent in poor neighborhoods, but it's $1.10 at the post office. I have no idea what the cost is today. It takes 2 to 3 weeks to get it. You also need to show the DMV proof of identity. We'll just assume you have a Social Security card. If you lost yours, well, I don't know what you do, because they require proof of identity like a state-issued identification card or passport, which of course you don't have. At least the card is free, but from personal experience, you'd have a long wait in the Social Security office to get it. Which brings me to the other point. Time. The DMV is only open during the weekdays. If you work minimum wage job, you're unlikely to have paid time off. So it would cost you $7.25 per hour to go to the DMV. First, you have to get there. You don't have the driver's license, so it costs you $2.25 by bus. I have no idea if that's relevant, but it's probably close. From 35th and north, the bus takes 30 minutes to get to the downtown DMV. I've never been in and out of the DMV in under an hour, and the downtown branch tends to be busy. So let's allow 1 hour at the DMV and 1 hour to and from. Then, of course, you have to get to work, so it's allow another half an hour for that. That's a bare minimum of 2.5 hours to get your ID, or $18.30 in lost wages. Let's add this up. ID card fee, $28. Birth certificate, $20. Money order, $1.10. Postage for birth certificate request, 44 cents. Minimum wage, $7.25 per hour times 2.5 hours, $18.13. Bus fare at $2.25 each way is $5.50, totaling $73.17. That's a lot of money if you're poor. Didn't we outlaw poll taxes because they disenfranchised poor voters? Oh yeah, they were abolished in the 24th Amendment to the Constitution. So this is just one example of the kind of thing I'm talking about. The people that are pushing this are hiding their classism and racism behind these laws. Now, I can give some of these folks a benefit of the doubt. They were born in circumstances where they've always had a birth certificate, where they've always had a Social Security card, where they've always had either a non-driver's ID or a driver's ID from the age of 16 forward, where they've always had a car, where they've always had a job that they had made enough money that they could leave work to go to the DMV to do these things if they needed them. So there are certain assumptions I'm willing to throw in your favor. Okay, fine. But these people need to step out of their personal life experiences and understand that not everyone else has the same life experiences. Not everyone else lives in the same circumstances. Which is why we have the 24th Constitutional Amendment, to make sure that we don't charge people to vote. But the reality of this, and the conservative politicians have admitted this, this is about disenfranchising the groups that traditionally vote Democrat. This is about disenfranchising the poor and racial minorities. Black people and brown people, to be specific. People that don't look like me. That's what this is about, folks. It's racism and classism. It's about making sure that the people elected to power are not being elected by the people who are paying taxes. Because all those people that are being disenfranchised are still paying taxes in America. All of them. Not one of them doesn't pay taxes. Because there's taxes on things they buy. On the gas, on the food, on their luxury items they have access to, on their payroll. There are taxes everywhere. So no one gets to tell me in the comments below that everyone doesn't pay taxes in America, because they do. The problem is the people at the top don't pay enough. And I don't care what the percentage on the books is for corporations, they don't pay that in reality. So don't try that one either. This is about disenfranchising people that the Republican Party doesn't want to vote. 1 billion votes, folks. 31 credible instances and less than 31 convictions. 1 billion votes. None of those votes would have swung an election. But the people that are being disenfranchised by voter ID laws, well, those numbers will swing elections. And it's just going to get worse. As the Caucasian population in America becomes a smaller and smaller portion of the population, the people in power, who are traditionally Caucasian, are going to go insane. And all of their rabid racist followers in the Tea Party, for example, are going to charge right forward and do whatever their leaders tell them to do. Things are going to get even worse than they are now. You think the voter suppression is bad today in 2014? It's going to be terrifying in 2034, when the population of Caucasians is even smaller. We're in some really horrible times right now, and we can stop it now. We can stop these laws now before they're the prevalent thing. But we're not. Because a whole lot of people have been duped by those in power, by the media, to think that voter IDs are required and voter suppression isn't taking place. They've been convinced that individuals impersonating other people are swinging elections when we know they aren't. And yet the perception is that voter fraud is a major problem in America, and it isn't. It has never been a problem. Ever. But now it's being used as a tool to benefit classists and racists and disenfranchise entire segments of the American population from the voting polls. And people should be terrified of that. They should be enraged. They should be fighting back. And they're not. So I wonder how many people in the comments or below are going to agree with me, and how many aren't. I get the feeling it isn't going to be a number that's going to make me feel positive.